welcome back to the Quest for Success podcast. Thank you so much for joining us again.
We have Noemi Kiss from San Diego. She's a serial entrepreneur, business enthusiast, and always talk about amazing things. So I actually follow her on LinkedIn, and I thought it would be great to have her on our podcast. Welcome, Noemi.
Thank you so much, Jam and Dylan. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's incredible to have you. I remember Jam was scrolling through LinkedIn one day, and he was showing me one of your posts, and we both were sitting down and thought, "Wow, this would be great to have you on." So thank you so much for joining us. We really like to start and kind of frame what success means to you to begin this conversation. So I want to ask you, what does success mean to you?
I love that question because I feel like it's so personal to everybody. So what success means to you means completely something different to me. But for me, it's really about being able to do work that aligns with my values and passions. So for me, it's always been really important that the work that I do is not just separate from my life, work, and then the things that I like doing. I always want it to be intertwined with it. So that's what I count as success, just loving what you do every day for work. And not all work is fun all the time, obviously, but having those values aligned is important.
Yeah, and you talked about, being aligned with your values. What are those values that you try and live by?
Yeah, so I'm very driven. So I've always been driven. I'm a first generation immigrant to the US. I was born in Eastern Europe, and I always had this kind of chip on my shoulder, like I have to somehow do this, do something with my life. I don't know what it is, but I just have to make sure that my life I achieve something that makes a difference. And I think I got that because growing up in Eastern Europe at that time, now Hungary is obviously a great country, but back then there were not many opportunities. So just got the message like you are in America and you have an opportunity here that many others may not. So to me, that was really what one of my values is working hard and being grateful and taking advantage of opportunities that we have.
Please tell everyone what do you do and a bit of a background to you, please.
Sure. So I own a business that is in the industrial water sector. And what we do is we're distributors for large manufacturers that are in the industrial space. So one of our manufacturers that we represent is 3M, just to give you an example. Yep. And one of our customers is Anheuser-Busch plant. And then we are the ones who make sure that they get the products they need to run the plant properly. And that's the business I've had for about a decade now.
So you started that business and you're managing?
I did. I just to give you a little background. So I actually wasn't a natural entrepreneur when I was younger. I was more introverted and just kind of following the rules, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But when I started working 9 to 5, I was in a really great company and I enjoyed it and I learned a lot. So I'm happy to have that experience. But I had this feeling of like something's missing in my life. And I don't know what it is, but I'm not truly happy. And I started thinking about what could I do where I start my own business. And I started searching different verticals. I actually started a matchmaking business as like a first try. It was really fun, but it didn't last very long. I actually found this really great opportunity in the industrial sector where I just started with one product line and I was able to get it from an intermediary. And so, as you know, it's not easy to get into the industrial space because you have to know people, you have to have relationships, and it's a network. So I basically started with one product line, started selling it, went to trade shows, set up a website, set up a company around this one product. And when my volume of sales got to the 7-figure range, then I was able to go to manufacturers myself and create accounts. And then other manufacturers started approaching me. So it sort of organically started growing. And then before I knew it, I had a thriving business in the industrial sector. So that it was an accidental kind of way into it, but I really love it. It's been great.
I've also noticed, Noemi, you had started several other business, right? So this is your first business, or you started many other business before that?
I've always started I've started a lot of businesses actually, and I wouldn't say businesses; they were ideas.
Yes.
So I would get an idea and I would test it out. One of the ideas that I started was, you know how there's the Brita filter, that the pitcher? And so I thought, why don't we have a water filter where you can like dip it into water and it filters it out? So I actually filed a patent on it and I got drawings done and I found this filter that's a sponge, but it has carbon in it and it absorbs water and it's supposed to filter the water around it. But it didn't quite work. It was a better idea. It just wasn't functional. So then I can tell you many ideas I've had that I've tried out and then I, realized they're not really feasible. I just didn't have the patience to really execute on
That's
them.
part of the journey, right? Like, I mean, I'm similar background to you. I was a migrant to this country. Like, so I totally can rely to what you're saying. Like when you come to a new country, you always see opportunities, right? So you always feel like you can't just sit back and relax. You have to go hard and try to take those opportunities. And that's probably one reason the migrants are coming. They're doing so well, because they have that hunger to do stuff. And again, just like you, my entrepreneurial journey started 19 years back to this Saturday, right? I started, actually, that's my current business.
Congrats.
More than that, I started since pretty much I came here. You always try new things and you always create things, and not everything's going to be successful, right? So but the thing is, the learning that you gain from when you're doing it, that's what matters, right? I mean, you probably have the similar experience. You learn from those exercises, all the ventures that you've done.
You do. It's so true. I almost learn more from my failures than
Absolutely.
I have from my successes. Because I know what not to do next, and I only want to make a mistake once, but it's really taught me a lot of lessons of what not to do. Just makes you stronger. The more things you try, the stronger you get.
Absolutely. And I want to take a bit of a backward step, and I want to understand how your early days have shaped who you are today. So you mentioned, you grew up in Hungary, I think you said. How was your upbringing, and do you think you have any key characteristics which you took from your parents or growing up in that environment?
Yeah, I love that question because I do feel like our childhood really does define who we are a lot. And I often wonder how much of my personality is nature versus nurture. Was I actually born with? Because my sister is totally different, from me. She's likes the stable job, and I'm more of the entrepreneur. So, but I had a really happy childhood growing up, especially till I was 10. Until I was 10, things were really, really wonderful. And what I learned from my mother's side is my mom was a visionary. So she had big dreams and she spoke many languages and she was a writer. And you would say she was the person behind us actually moving to a new country. She was the visionary to say we can actually move and start a new life in another country. And then what made my father and my mother's partnership so great is that my dad was more of the stable, kind of grounded executor. So in business, we have the visionary and the integrator. I'm sure you've heard,
Yep.
and for them, it was like my mother was the visionary and he was the executor. So he said, okay, if this is the vision that we're gonna go, then we're gonna go. And he was a math professor. He started doing computer programming, and that's how we left the country. Is he was able to secure a position in South Africa at the time. But it was definitely I think I grew up really fast, just moving to a different country and leaving all of your kind of sheltered life of a family where you have everybody to fall back to, your grandparents and uncles and aunts, and you just know everybody. I'm sure you're familiar with that as well. Jam
Yes.
is it's just so different. You just have to adapt really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And when you came to America, I I imagine there must have been some challenges being, from a different country, and especially starting your entrepreneurial journey, being a female founder from overseas. Did you face any adversity and challenges throughout that?
Gosh, I mean, as you know, being in the industrial sector, it's like I go to a trade show and I'm one of the only, not only, I'm exaggerating, but there's very few
Yep.
women in my industry. So I've always been used to being not, you know, not being in the women's industry. And for some reason, I always felt like it was somewhat of an advantage because I stand out a little bit. Like, oh, this woman, she runs a business, and there could be 100 different businesses similar to mine run by men, and then there's me, and that gives me a little bit of an advantage, I think. So I've always looked at it like, how can I gain advantage of this? Like, what strategic advantage that I can get from this?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's how I looked at it. And there were always challenges, I think, just in entrepreneurship in general that have come. You know, I I started. I got this idea about now 3 years ago, where I've been working with these manufacturers, and I could see that the equipment they were using, they would sell, these large OEMs would sell a piece of equipment for like $1 million or $10 million, and then they would lose that customer and they'd have to hunt for another
Mm-hmm.
customer and do that a new project. And so I said, well, how can we create a software where you can actually keep your customers after the equipment is installed for aftermarket sales and parts for service, because there's a lot of margin and that's recurring revenue. So I started building this software and I had to raise money for it. And it was, and I learned a lot. Like, I learned how to raise money from VCs. I learned how to run a software team, how to, build a startup, how to have co-founders and all of that. But ultimately, I decided to shut the company down because it was just not, it was proving to be this huge monster of a project
Yep.
where
Probably too early.
it could be too early,
Yeah.
but we weren't finding product market fit
Yeah.
fast enough. So,
So,
but that was one of my major learnings and really a good time in my life.
yeah, I mean, you amaze the things that you learn from those mistakes. I wouldn't call it mistakes. It's all part of the learning,
Learning, yeah.
right? Yeah, it's a journey. Noemi, have you worked for a company before you start your own enterprises?
I did.
Tell us a little bit background to your journey. You mentioned that you came to US when you were quite young.
I did. So I Yeah, so we left Hungary when I was 12 and we moved to Cape Town, South Africa. So I actually, that was where I learned English and that's where I got accustomed to a new culture first. And we left Cape Town to move to the US when I was 17. So I got to go to a US high school and I was living in the US by then. And I didn't and then I decided to go back to Hungary for college. So I got a degree in accounting slash finance. And I said, okay, if I get this degree, I'll never be out of a job. So I'll always have stability. And I kind of just went after the traditional route of that. And when I moved back to the US after college, I started working for a various accounting firms, business management firms, wealth management, and I started learning the ropes. I was going to become a CPA. But like I said, I started having this feeling of like, gosh, like this doesn't feel right. It's not doesn't like I can't see myself here for the next 40, 50 years until I retire. Life's supposed to be more fun than this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that because I've had a similar kind of journey. I started in
Really?
engineering and went and worked for just over a year and a half. And I remember it very clearly. The moment that it clicked for me was we had an event for a guy's 40th anniversary at the company, 40 years at the same company. And it just, something hit me that day. I was just thinking that could so easily be me. I could wake up, and 40 years would have flown by. And so that was kind of the turning point for me. So it's interesting to hear that it's a common
Wow.
theme for entrepreneurs.
It's true. I love that you mentioned that turning point. It's reminded me of my own. I was working at a corporate some kind of job, and I was going back to Florida to visit my dad, and I was leaving after a trip with him with my family, and he dropped me off at the airport, and we were sitting in the airport waiting for my plane to take off, and we were sitting and chatting, and I just remember I started crying and I said, I don't want to go back. He said, what's going on? And I said, I just don't like my life. Like I just have to go back and have to, go back to this job that I'm not passionate about, and I don't have any other opportunities or anything else that I think I can do with my life. It felt so like a dead end. Like I felt so stuck in that moment. But it was like the first realization. It was my aha moment. Like,
Yeah.
wow,
This is not
this
me.
has to change.
And what was his reaction to that?
Gosh, I think he didn't really understand because he's, the stable guy who's like at the same job, and he's so grounded in that. And he loves it. Like he loves what he does for a living. So he doesn't understand that, but but yeah, I think
Do you
he
think,
was just supportive.
Naomi, do you think also coming from Hungary to South Africa and then coming to US got more entrepreneurial kind of a spirit, like, that you see opportunities more, that you can really go and do your own thing rather than working for someone?
100%. Yes, you don't really see, maybe you do now, but at that time you didn't really see this in Hungary, this being a big option. Like, oh yeah, let's start your own business. It was not really there. Everyone, even in college, we were graduating, and everyone is like, okay, where are you going? I'm going to Germany. I'm going to London. Where are you going to start your life? So it's a big telling.
Yeah, so I guess the environment kind of open up you to be a real entrepreneur. Even you may had some entrepreneurial spirit in you, but that having you in the right environment kind of open you up. Is that sounds
It's
right?
true. 100%. Exactly. You put a seed in the right soil, it's going to flourish.
Absolutely.
And that's what happened to me. I always had it in me. I just didn't know it.
And I was reading your LinkedIn bio, which I must say is very well crafted. I love how you've kind of summarized your entire life in just a few paragraphs. And you you mentioned that throughout your 20s you know were kind of feeling a bit stuck and just you felt like your surroundings weren't supporting your dream. And
Yes.
I want you to talk a bit more about that. How was that feeling? Why weren't they supporting your dreams? How?
Yeah, so in my 20s, I was really lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. Um, I didn't have this like what later came as a fire in the belly, like I have to do something. It was more like I don't know what I should do, but I don't want to really do this big career corporate. And so I really got into a crowd that was where we weren't talking about what kind of successful thing do you have on your vision? Like, what are your goals? Those were not the conversations we were having. It was, let's go out here and let's go out there. It was a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't reading business books. I wasn't in the life. I didn't have any entrepreneur friends at all. And I feel like I kept kind of being pulled into this comfort zone of a friendships where we were just hanging out, but wasting our lives, not really thinking about what to do next. Um, and I had sort of an aha moment on my 30th birthday. It was like my 30th birthday party. And I just looked around and I said, is this what is this where I thought I would be
Mm-hmm.
when I was 30? Like, is this where I would have wanted to be? Because I haven't really achieved much. I didn't really know where I was going to do still. And it just seemed so late in life already to be 30 and not, have. And I feel like that was the moment where I completely had a 180 and I started attending seminars. I started reading business books. I started doing, workshops and getting into self-improvement and really digging deep and seeing what was gonna, like, what's my purpose? Why am I here? Yeah. And then after that, everything just started shifting really quickly. And like um, within a few years, I found that my business, within 2, 3 years, I found that first business and things started accelerating really quickly. So it's like things don't even have to take forever. Some people think, okay, if I decide to do something, it's going to take 5 years and 10 years to learn. Like, it doesn't have to be. It actually moved pretty quickly because my friend circle started expanding. I joined the entrepreneurs organization. I'm sure you know
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
EO. And then I realized how important people are because they either pull you up or they pull you down. And I started collecting people like relationships, people who are 10 steps ahead of me. And how did you get there? And how did you do that? And I was just like a sponge. I wanted to learn everything.
Was it a difficult change? Like, from not like, taking life quite easy and then suddenly, thinking, hey, I need to be serious. This is not my purpose. Asking that question and then changing, suddenly turn the switch, as you said, 180 degrees. Was it a easy change or took you a while?
No, it was not that easy. I had to let go of a lot of old beliefs, old ideas on imposter syndrome. Like,
Mm-hmm.
am I really capable of, who do you think you are? You're going to be a business owner now. And um, it was a lot of old self beliefs that I had to change in myself. And I feel like but what actually happened, it was interesting because I think after so many years of burying your purpose, it was almost like the fire was ignited and I just couldn't wait to do something with it. and it switched. This switch went on of this quest for success. Very fitting for the podcast.
Perfect.
That's really interesting. And I want to, do you look back on your 20s in a bad light? Like, do you resent that time and regret that time? Or do you almost think it's part of the journey, and that maybe unproductive time kind of lit the fire inside you?
Gosh, I used to look back on it with regret. Like, what a waste. Like, look where I could be if I had used those 10 years. But what I've realized, like, one of the biggest lessons I learned recently is to focus on what I can control and know the things that I cannot. And what I cannot control is what happened. And what I can control is who I am now and what I do now with my life. And also, I I don't know if it gave me the edge, but maybe it did give me an edge. I learned things. I learned what I don't want, and I think I can help others now who are maybe in their 20s feeling stuck and in a dead end and looking at somebody who's come out of it. I can say to them, I've been where you are. I know what it's like. And, I can actually show you with my example that you can completely turn that around if you want.
And I want to go now to the moment that you decided to start your own business. Take us to that point in time where you're like, I'm going to do this.
Gosh, it's funny because I actually remember it. I actually remember the moment where I decided to do it. I had two options to start two businesses. One of it was another business. I don't remember exactly. And this one was the water business. And I had these two choices. And for the last few months, I was kind of dabbling in both. Like, should I, doing research and procrastinating and all of that. And I didn't know which one to go after. And then I remember listening to some type of an audio. I don't know if it was, I think it was like a set of CDs by like a motivational speaker or something. And the person was saying that the moment that you commit to something fully, things start moving in that direction. But if you don't commit and you're just kind of doing things here and there, they're never going to work. And I stopped everything I was doing and I took a deep breath and I said, I am 100% burning the boats. Every other opportunity is gonna go by the wayside. I am committing to this 100%. And that was the moment. I remember where I was. I was in my bedroom listening to this speaker, and I made the decision. And after I made the decision, it was like game on. I got my website going. I started cold emailing people. I started signing up for trade shows, and things started moving, and there was no turning back. That's what it takes, I think, to really make something work. You have to commit.
Noemi, did you, when you started, you had any support?
I had a mentor who's been in the industry before. So he was very, very helpful. And actually, he helped me buying inventory from his warehouse. So that was really helpful. But besides that, it was later that I joined the Entrepreneurs Organization, where I really got a lot of support from peers. But not really. It was...
So this is more self-funded business?
Yeah. Oh, yes, 100%. 100%. Yeah, I had no financial support or anything. It was just self-funded on my own. And the fact that I was able to not have to have inventory at first because I had this connection was what allowed me to just bootstrap it.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you'd also done a venture-backed journey. I want to get your opinion, or which one do you prefer now that you've had both experiences?
Gosh, I think there's businesses that are really suited for bootstrap and that are really suited for VC. And I think the founder has to really be clear on what kind of life they want, because I feel like once you go after outside investment, you are really committed to the investors. You know, you have milestones that you are promising them that you're going to reach. You have you're growing fast, and even if you decide you don't want to grow fast, you sort of have to in order to reach the milestone and qualify for the next round of funding. You're spending all your time fundraising. You know, a lot of the time goes there. And so for me, but some businesses I think need that. If you're in an industry that's super fast growing, like right now, maybe AI or some tech where you're really innovating something and you want to move fast, maybe it warrants that, like the Airbnbs and Ubers of the world.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't want to do that anymore. I really love the idea of having a business and doing product market fit, you know, in your own way, talking to your customers. And if you want to slow down, you slow down. If you want to ramp up and get customer revenue in, you can do that. But I like being in control of my business because it's my baby. I really look at my businesses as my baby, and I know what's best for it. And yeah, and that's my answer. And
yeah, you probably feel more having that control and the freedom than like the growth, or you know, trying to make it too big, and then it's kind of out of your hand. You're handing over your baby to someone else, and then they run your pretty much the way that they want it, and you lose the vision, the dream that you have. So that's quite can connect to what you're saying.
Yes. And I'm finding that it's also easier to have like, you know, founders dream of the big exit, like the $1 billion kind of valuation, and then you have your, you know, 8-9 figure exit. And it's sort of been the entrepreneurial dream for many founders. But I feel like there's this other opportunity where you can have a really great business and you don't have to ever sell it. You can just have great cash flow from it, and you can still automate a lot of it, and it doesn't mean you can't have work-life balance if you're running a great business. So I'm a big proponent. Start a small business and create a really great life around it. It doesn't have to be fast growth or anything. It can just have great cash flow.
I guess you have to ask the question when you're starting a business, whether you're building this business to keep or to sell. So you're going in that path. Yeah, I wanna create this business. It's in my control. This is my baby. I'm driving this. You know, where I can be very comfortable. Not necessarily looking for $1 billion exit. You know, that's
Yes.
not what you're looking. Yeah, makes sense.
And I think it's still smart to build enterprise value into the business and see how it can have technology or things that would make it higher value. So there's nothing wrong with selling or exiting a business. It's just the scale of the unicorn is such a myth, you know.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. I just had a huge favor to ask you guys. Over 90% of you who are listening to this episode right now aren't subscribed or aren't following us on your favorite streaming service. So if you could do yourself and us a massive favor, go and click that subscribe or follow button. It means we can grow the show, which means we can get bigger and better guests on for you guys. And with that, back to the episode. And so is your current plan to continue growing your current business, or are you planning to start a couple different smaller businesses and just let them run, or what's your goal?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about the online space. I see a huge opportunity in the sort of online having a personal brand and a business around a personal brand. What I find is that when I've been building several businesses and you're marketing your business and testing out, you do a lot of marketing and you get people in through outbound marketing. But what I've really found powerful just in my short 8 months journey on LinkedIn, building to 50,000 followers, is how powerful it is when you're just giving away free value and content. And then you have inbound leads or people that are interested in whatever you offer, even if you don't offer anything, people reaching out, can you consult? Can you coach? Can you do this? Without doing any marketing. There's a lot of power in that. And I think every CEO or founder really should do something with a personal brand. I really recommend it.
That's the perfect segue, because that's actually the next question that I was going to ask you about. Was, as you said, you've grown to 50,000 followers. I didn't realize you just started your LinkedIn 8 months ago.
Wow.
Yes.
How did you scale your followership that quickly?
So I have a philosophy that I strongly believe in, is whenever starting something new, instead of trying to learn the learning curve for 6 months and making mistakes, I just go to the person who's the best in that industry and I hire them and I say, show me how to do it. And that's exactly what I did. Before I started anything on LinkedIn, I had 5,000 followers. I hired somebody who had 200,000 followers. And she taught me the ropes. And she basically said, this is what you do. This is what I've done. This is the system, the structure. And then I implemented it. And it was still some trial and error. I still had to learn a few things and find my own voice and audience and learn new skills like writing and content creation. But it's been really pretty fast growth.
Yeah, it definitely did work. That's why we're here, right?
Yes, it did work. It did work, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We found you on social media, LinkedIn. So we thought amazing that we need to have this chat.
Yes, I'm so glad you did.
And
it's great.
Building that brand, other than getting extra inbound leads like you talked about, what other leverage do you think it provides you?
Yeah, I think there's something really powerful in digital products, because what happens is, like, you make an episode of this podcast, for example, and you could put a call to action at the end, for example, and you make it once and that lives on the internet forever.
Mm-hmm.
And while you sleep, in social media, people can be circulating it, they can be sharing it. People find you 6 months from now and they go through your other episodes. It's huge leverage. It is, I believe it's one of the best leverages, just like online courses, communities that, where you can create your knowledge, and then instead of spending your hours teaching somebody that, you create it once and get it to a large scale of people.
And I think for me as well, I think it's also goes back to points of contact. Someone once told me, for someone to make a decision in something, then it needs to be 7 touch points or points of contact where they see you. Or it's also big in advertising. That's why these big companies are on buses and trains and things like that, because when you see them, it's just another one of those touch points before, when it comes to the decision time, you go, oh, I've seen these people around, they have reputation. And so I think building your personal brand also improves that, because you have more touch points and micro exposure. So, this podcast, you're on this podcast. I've seen you've been on a few other podcasts. When people search your name, there's micro exposure from all these different little things. So then when they see your newsletter pop up, they might go, oh, I've seen her on a few different things, I'll sign up. And so I think
Exactly.
Create that trust.
Yeah, it builds trust and reputation,
That's it.
having a lot of micro exposure.
It's so true. You're building trust, and people, will either they have to like you and they have to trust you to buy from you. And with content, you can create both, because people will say, okay, I resonate with her. She seems to have things that are valuable to me. Like I want to learn about entrepreneurship or the topic you're teaching. And then they trust you because you keep showing up consistently. Just, like you were saying, Dylan, it's so important.
Yeah, Noemi. So exactly. So when we started this podcast, we were looking for something that we both wanted to enjoy, and what we also wanted to do something positively impact others. So I mean, this discussion we are having right now, Noemi, someone listen to this and listening to your story. If one person get like positive experience and they get motivated by your story, that's exactly what we want to achieve. It's not just building a personal brand is important, but again, how can we really create a positive impact? So I think, as you said, the leverage, I mean, we spend probably hour having this chat, but it will probably listen by 100 other people, so it's like 100 times played or more, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a powerful, very powerful thing.
It really is. It's great, especially when the people doing it are passionate about that topic. It just really shows.
It resonates for 100%. And, we're both trying to build our personal brands a bit more. And I'm sure many people listening are. Do you have any tips?
Any tips? Yes. I would, if somebody's new to content personal brand building, I would recommend starting on LinkedIn. It's a really not as saturated as other platforms, and it also has a lower barrier to entry because you don't necessarily have to do short form video or go viral or any of that. You can literally just put yourself in front of connections and write authentically about your journey, your story, and start giving away tips and things that you've learned. All you have to be is 2 steps ahead of the people you're talking to, and you can teach anything, give away value. And then once building up the LinkedIn, I think it's smart to move into other, like a newsletter, because platforms, you don't own the audience you build. You're putting in all this work creating a lot of content, but the algorithm really decides who gets to see it. So maybe 10% of your audience sees your content when you post something. So I really recommend starting a newsletter, and the people who resonate with your newsletter, then they get 100% of your emails. They may not open it, but you can get to everyone. And then what I'm doing next now is getting to cross platforms. So I'm starting a new mode of content creation, which is short form videos. And so I'm actually going on the channels with video to really be 3-dimensional with my personal brand. And so I'm doing it really step by step.
And how do you, this is just a personal question, how do you manage your time? Because for me, even making this podcast, making the reels for this podcast takes up so much time. And I know you're also working in your company. How do you find that balance?
Yeah, whenever I start doing something, I like to do it myself, so I can tinker with it. I can like perfect it. Like my content, I've always done to the T myself. But then after I get overwhelmed, I start outsourcing it. So I now have a VA who's trained on helping me do it. I have a graphic designer, and because I learned so well how to do it, now I'm very easily able to say, just be the strategy. Like, this is what I'd like to create. And then, yeah, I mean, I like time blocking. What I like to do is, because we have so many things going on with business and notifications and all that, I literally have to block out and put my phone on D&D between 9 and 12. because that's when I'm most fresh. So I try not to do appointments during that time. I literally just focus on like, what am I moving forward during this hour that I need to do?
Yeah, time for some deep work.
Yes, deep work. And then the rest of the afternoon is like things I have to get done. Talking to my team, getting on Slack, doing any kind of meetings, podcasts, which I love.
Yeah. So, Noemi, just to understand a little bit more to what you've done or what you're doing, can you tell us what probably one of the greatest achievements that in your career that you have achieved, or something that you feel
Wow.
like, I feel like, wow, I've done this.
Oh my gosh. So
Sorry to put you on the spot.
um, I think for me, reaching the $1 million mark was always a milestone. Like I feel like in my head, okay, if I can start a business that reaches 1 million in revenue, then that's one milestone. And I was always very proud of that. I always, I think being a good manager, I used to have a hard time in the beginning of my career, my business, to hire and really not micromanage and really know how to. So I think a big achievement is like how I am with my team now. Is I have a small team, but really we're very close and we do one-on-one meetings every week, and I even support them on like, a side hustle they want to start. So I feel like I really love the mentorship part. I'm proud of myself for that level of growth in my leadership. And personally, I'm proud of I got married 5 years ago, and
Congratulations.
thank you. And that's an achievement in itself,
Absolutely.
So to be the type of partner where you can be in a happy marriage and relationship, that's a huge achievement in life also, and it's just as important as career success.
Amazing.
And how do you find balancing your family time and your business or productive time as well?
Yeah, my husband's also an entrepreneur, so
That's easy.
we have circles. He's in YPO, I'm in EO, so we have
Nice.
very similar. But yeah, we make sure we make time. It's really important, and sometimes it's even like I find we both had a time when we weren't working that much because we were in between businesses and we were spending a lot of time together. It was great, but when we both, like, I started my new business and then he went back to another business, and then we found that we got busier, and so we really had to be intentional with the quality time we spent together. So we're like, okay, we have, this weekend together, and then we have like after 6 p.m., it's like our time. So we even protected more because of that. I think being intentional is important.
Yeah, but when you're off your work time, what do you talk? I'm sure you still talk about business.
No, we don't. Because we're in different businesses. And when I talk about my business, he reminds me that I'm talking about business for the last 2 hours. so
Yeah.
so we try not to do that.
At least you have something in common, right? So you both like understand the journey, like understand what you need. Like, you have to give up so many things to be an entrepreneur, running your own business. So as long as you do understand, you have good sync, good communication.
Yes, it's true.
And I want to understand what is your vision now that you've built successful businesses, you're doing exceptionally well building your brand. What is your vision out of all of this?
Yeah, so my vision is to give away what I've learned so far to people who are maybe where I was 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And what I believe in is success is really two things. It's mindset, because if in my core I don't believe that I'm capable of doing something, or I have old ideas holding me back, even if I have the tactical things to do, I'm not going to take action on it. So I feel like mindset and systems and tactics. The action put together is what makes success, and I want to teach that. So I'm actually starting a membership community for entrepreneurs who want to either aspiring to start a business or already have a business that they want to run. I want to make it a mentorship community. So I'm working on that. I haven't launched it yet, but I'll probably launch a beta sometime in August.
Nice.
That yeah, so that's what I'm passionate about and super excited.
You want to give back.
I do.
Yeah.
I love working with entrepreneurs who are like, who have the fire in the belly and they're like, I'm ready to do it.
It's interesting, Noemi, because we are very similar. Even the background, we came from different country. We just build our business, and also the end goal. I mean, I was telling Dylan, having Dylan, and also he's an entrepreneur, so we got so much in common. We talk a lot, and the podcast is a great way to us to improve our communication. And end of the day, so we're still different age groups, as you know. Dylan's still early 20s, and I'm in the late side, like, kind of closing, not really closing, but probably this is a time for me to start thinking of how I give back. All the 20 plus years, my experience doing my own thing, how can I give back? So we are kind of started kind of similar way and going to the end, giving back,
Right.
what we learn. And end of the day, that what makes you happy and that what makes you successful, right?
Exactly. Exactly. It's so true. And I love that you are doing this podcast together because it's such a fun thing to do, and you both bring different perspectives because you have all this experience. And Dylan, you're this kind of young entrepreneurial, you're like ready to take on the world. It's so exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great for both of us to learn as well.
Absolutely.
There's
Yeah.
so much that I don't know that my dad can teach me, but we also learn so much from the guests. And again, it goes back to the leverage thing as well. How can we take all of this knowledge from all these fantastic people and broadcast it to the masses and try and it's relates to your vision. Try and get it to as many people as possible and help everyone along the journey.
Definitely.
And do you think, looking back along your whole journey, do you think there's any key factors, any key traits about yourself which you think have led to your success?
One of them, I think, is that I'm comfortable with risk. So I actually really enjoy trying out new things. And I think that's a really great trait. So if I think that's definitely needed for entrepreneurship, is this kind of appetite for newness and things and innovation. Another thing is I'm definitely a futurist. So I spend a lot of my time thinking about the future, what could be, what will this look like, where will this trend take us. And I think that's important because, I always feel like successful entrepreneurs don't go where the puck is now. They go where the puck is going to be. And that's important.
Do you look back and have any regrets?
Yeah, not leaving failures early enough, like hanging on, this business is gonna work out. Like my startup, I think that I wish I would have, maybe looked at business ideas not as my baby that I cannot quit, but things that are, what could this be? Let me test it and be a little detached from it, and only fully commit once it's proven product market fit.
Yeah. And we've been talking for close to an hour, so I'm going to start to wrap things up. But I want to link back to the first question that I asked you. Looking back on this whole journey we've discussed, do you feel successful now?
Oh my gosh, I I do feel successful, and it's not easy for me to say that because part of my brain is like, but you haven't achieved this and you haven't achieved that. So I have to say that I've achieved a lot of success in my life, and I'm very grateful for it. And I'm not as successful as other people that maybe there's always going to be more successful and less successful. And I try not to compare. I want to just compare to myself. And I feel like I'm not there yet. So I haven't yet kind of achieved everything I want to achieve. So I'm still doing this, and we'll keep growing more and more.
That's fantastic. And I like to wrap things up by trying to summarize some of the key traits which I think throughout our discussion have led to your success. And so I want to share some of them. The first one is, I think you're incredibly driven. When you have an idea in your head, you just go and get after it. And I think that not waiting and mulling too long, just getting in and getting things done, I think that's an incredibly important trait, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs share, just going and getting things done. And you touched on it earlier as well, but I think not being afraid of failure, just understanding that failure is an important lesson, and without failure, we wouldn't achieve anything. And so taking failure in your stride, which for any entrepreneur, they have to take a risk to try and make it big. So I think this risk appetite is also very important. And the other thing I liked was you see the positives in things. When I asked about have you had any challenges, adversity, you very much took the glass half full approach. And I think that's something to be commended on. It's very easy to look at the negatives and be put down, but I think the way that you always see the positive things is incredible. And another one is self-awareness, realizing in your 30s that you weren't where you wanted to be, and actually making a change about it. I'm sure there are many people who have had a similar realization, but kind of not really done anything with it. But I think having that self-awareness, always kind of checking in with yourself and checking, are you going towards your end goal? I think that is another trait which is probably shared amongst entrepreneurs, working towards a vision. And then the last one is, I think your strengths. It was when you mentioned when you were building your LinkedIn community, you went and got expert help. You like to start things early and learn the ins and outs of it yourself, but then when it's time for you to step back and get an expert in to come and help you. And I think that really helps with scale, because it's very easy for entrepreneurs, as you said, to hold on to things as their child and not want to give away control. But at the same time, you can't scale things if you're trying to do everything at once. And so I think that ability to give control to someone else is also very powerful. So those are some of the things I took away from our conversation. But yeah, it's been
also, Noemi, I realize you're someone very easy to talk to, and you're a very good listener. I'm sure I only know you less than an hour, but I feel like I know you for a long time, and I'm sure in your day-to-day stuff, you probably let others to talk and listen quite a lot and take a lot of notes. I mean, that's a very good skill to have. So that's add to that Dylan's list. Your listening skills, I can see it's amazing.
Oh, thank you so much.
And yeah, thank you so much for this discussion. It's been very fruitful, and especially for me, an aspiring entrepreneur as well, reflecting and also relating to a lot of what you spoke about. For our listeners, if they want to follow your journey or get involved with what you're doing, where can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn at Noemi Kish, Noemikis. Also, my website, noemikish.com, and soon on all of the other channels, TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, under the same name.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, and people should definitely check it out and sign up to your newsletter as well. You put out a lot of great articles, which will be very beneficial to everyone.
And we learn a lot as well, this discussion. So we need to look at our social media strategy.
Yeah.
And we take some of your points. And Naomi, it's a pleasure to have you on this podcast. And it was awesome. Like, yeah, thank you so
It
much.
was awesome. You guys are great. Really. I had such a wonderful time and so inspirational. You asked amazing questions and you're also both very good listeners. It's just really a quality conversation. I love these conversations. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. It
Thank
was
you, Noemi.
fantastic. And for those of you who aren't already, please follow us at The Quest for Success Pod on Instagram and leave us a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We've also just released our website, thequestforsuccesspodcast.com. So go over there and check it out. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thank you.